Hello, this is Eric Miscoll with EMSNOW here at IPC Apex in San Diego 2018. Have a panel of colleagues here today to discuss business in Mexico and what they're seeing and kind of giving an update from what we did here last year. Joining me today, we'll go from left to right, is Bill with Creative Electron, Ramon with Co-Young, and Ivan with SMarTsol. Did I say that right? SMarTsol, thank you. We're here just to get your opinion. People, want to know what's happening, what are the trends, what are you seeing? And as people who are all doing business in Mexico, I think, it's pretty informed. So let me just start. We'll maybe go left to right and kind of play off it as it goes. What are you seeing generally? Is the business climate in Mexico today, in the markets that you're playing in? What are you seeing?
So we've seen, for us, for Creative Electron, we provide X-ray inspection systems. We've seen tremendous growth in Mexico. Last year, the beginning of the year was somewhat soft, but 2018 has been a very solid year for us. And we've seen several sectors in the industry, including automotive, has been sustaining the growth, and we see 2018 as a very solid year.
Yeah, how are you saying it there?
In Mexico, since last year, there has been a huge growth in the industry, especially with automotive industry and LED industry, I would say. Those are the two biggest sectors that has been growing in the country.
Okay. Ivan, what are you seeing?
Yeah, we see a lot of potential. The result for the last years has been mainly focused in the acquisition for the automotive, but that is not only in the electronic assembly, that is also for the components, part assembly, and cars manufacturer. But a lot of the industry, a lot of lighting, a lot of infrastructure, very complex boards still coming to Mexico. And the current companies still investing, trying to do better process to save money, to reduce cost. And of course, the people that we have in Mexico now, most of the people has 20 years of experience in the electronic assembly, so that is a lot of value add for the electronic assembly industry. Education of the people is still growing, a lot of universities, a lot of new careers, degrees focus on manufacturing, engineering, robotics, mechatronics, so that is a lot of value add for the industry in general.
You talk about a few things here, but to pick up on some of the trends that are happening there, you talk about industry, so automotive and what have you. But what about other initiatives within the industry, or things like Industry 4.0? Do you see that as a driver? Do you see these the way that manufacturing is getting smarter, being a drive for the business down there that's taking away maybe some of the advantage that used to take things to Asia?
Yeah, I mean, that makes it even more relevant, this experiment we're running here today, which is the CFX, which is a new standard, or this new new solution for Industry 4.0. Mexico is, in many ways, ahead of us, even in the United States, when they're putting more lines and more automation, and the requirements for automation is actually in some ways higher than here in the US. So we've seen Industry 4.0 as a vector growth for us in Mexico, as connectivity is a bigger and bigger requirement.
Absolutely. And with Co-Young, must be an issue for you as well, obviously.
Yes, I guess when we talk in Mexico, you need to communicate with all the different vendors. So right now in Mexico, I will say since last year, end of last year, this year, Industry 4.0 is a huge subject, yes. But now it's a reality. Before last year, we were just talking about it, but now this year, the customers are already putting that in practice in the different facilities.
Ivan, how about from your perspective?
Yes, Industry 4.0 is a reality now in Mexico. A lot of initiatives are being driven directly by our customers who are having like a council meetings with all the key suppliers, how to do the automation, how to do the integration of the data, for their production lines, and there is a good synergy that we have now between the different suppliers and the end users. So we are sure that in 2018, most of the companies will have at least the first lines fully automatic with Industry 4.0, and expecting a huge growth in 2018, 2020.
So, from a customer perspective, where do you see that? I mean, Mexico has always been known as kind of an export, obviously, to benefiting mostly to the United States, but a lot of Asian companies as well have over the years been moving into Mexico.
European companies as well.
And
Germans, yeah.
And mostly, so what are you seeing in that? Where are there new customers, or are these just existing customers growing it? Are you seeing new industries?
No, we've seen new customers. I mean, new companies setting up reasonable infrastructure in Mexico to produce for the internal Mexican market and also to supply systems and subsystems for to American companies.
How are you seeing it?
Yeah, with as he mentioned, with all the European accounts, Japanese accounts, having Mazda, Audi, these big names over there in Mexico, having pulling industry, new companies that before they were only Europe, Asia, but now Mexico is a big focus for them.
And Ivan, down at the end there, how do you see it?
Yes, we see that in the past years, 80% of the total sales within the year came from the big EMS. Right now, we are expecting this year to have a 70-30. Big EMS will continue driving the 70% of the business, but now Tier 2s, Tier 3s will start getting more market share or more footprint in electronic assembly, and of course, more business for us.
You bring up, but is it just the big EMS, or do you see, we hear stories in the United States about smaller EMS moving to Mexico now as well. So is that driving it as well?
Yes, that's why we are moving from 80-20 to 70-30.
Okay.
But overall, the pie is getting bigger. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's excellent point. But
Yeah.
are you seeing the same then? So
Same thing.
Smaller.
Same thing.
Yeah,
Yes, it's a larger diversification of the market, which is great for the Mexican economy. For the labor force that's getting out of school and not necessarily has to work on a huge EMS company. Now has smaller companies to work for, and it's a very very active and very fertile startup community in Mexico. We have one of our demo centers in Tijuana is in a place called Beat Center, and it's an incredible to see how many small companies, how many startups with great ideas, that I'm sure a bunch of them will become billion-dollar companies one day. Starting there, so it's amazing to see this startup community in Mexico.
And they have that in Guadalajara as well. The Plug and Play, who is there, has a phenomenal presence there. I don't know if you engage with those people.
Actually, this is a good point. Before, we used to see big EMS companies in Mexico. But now we're starting to see Mexican companies, contract manufacturers companies that little by little they have been growing in the industry and participating in this huge market. So that's something good for Mexico. That's something positive for the region.
So let me shift gears here a little bit and talk a little politics. And I want to do that in two ways.
So we leave now?
No. July is an important month in Mexico. You're about to elect a new president down there. As it is north of the border, elections in Mexico can be quite lively. Not asking you for a prediction on who might win, but more as, is there any anxiety or any issues related to that may impact the business? Or is there any concern, or do you think the Mexico machine will just keep going regardless of who's there?
Yeah, from our perspective, we don't foresee any major shifts in the overall Mexican strategy of being, fostering this startup community. We don't see our bigger concern is the conversation about NAFTA from this end of the border, which might have your next question. Sorry. So
okay.
Maybe we'll talk about they can answer about
let's stay there and then let's come north of the border. How do you see with the election any impact potential on the?
I don't see too much risk, to be honest, because manufacturing industry for Mexico is huge. So regardless who wins, they need to keep big EMS happy. So for sure, I don't see a huge change, a huge impact. I hope, but honestly, I think that it will keep growing the industry over there.
Would you agree, Ivan?
Yes, there is a lot of reinforcements on the laws of Mexican. The last 10 years has been a lot of modifications to the laws. that it helps to have more stable economy, more stable politics in Mexico. And that is the basement or the foundation to have a good economy in the industry as well. We feel that, of course, there are some candidates that can make some funny promise to the people that is going to deliver money to everybody. And that is not what is really going to happen, because the laws are already in place and we need to follow that rules. And the economy in Mexico is very stable right now for the manufacturing industry. And in case of any crisis with the government, the exchange rate will be better for the exportation. Yeah. So of course we hope to have stability, but in case of a little crisis, the exportation can get some benefits of that crisis. We hope that we don't see a big impact.
Good. So then let's go north of the border. I mean, up here, there was obviously a lot of concern expressed, especially at the beginning of the last year. And then, as you're saying, one of the impacts that our new administration up here has had is obviously with the push to renegotiate NAFTA, and that causes some concern. But there's also some agreement in the parties involved as to maybe it's time to renew some things. So how do you see that working out? How do you see the impact?
Yeah, so the renegotiation, that conversation, I think, can be healthy, right? I think, NAFTA is now over 20 years old. I think it is an opportunity to sit down and discuss some of the topics. However, like you were saying, NAFTA is too big for anything to really change, right? I mean, we have, as we all know, automotive parts that cross the border several times in their process of fabrication. So it's one of those topics where it's easy, it's an easy one-liner, in a speech, but when it comes to managing the details, you touch one thing and you unravel a bunch of other things that you might not want. So realistically, I think it's going to stay in the conversation stage, and that's going to be, and then we'll keep on doing business as usual. And at the same time, what we see is, Mexico is not going to sit down and wait for the U.S. to figure out what they're going to do. We've seen, Mexican companies reaching out to Asia and to Europe, even to South America, as a means to keep growing, keep fostering new relationships. So Mexico is going to go strong and keep doing just fine, despite little crisis here and there, which every country has. But overall, we foresee a great growth trajectory for Mexico next years.
Ramon, I see you nodding. Do you tend to agree with that? Would you like to add something?
Yeah, I actually agree. I think, as you mentioned, we have a lot of, and we were talking Japanese companies, European companies. Yep. So I think it's not going to be a huge impact or changes. Everything needs to be renegotiated, so it's good from time to time, touch those subjects, but I really don't think that it will have a big impact on Mexico's side.
So more kind of tweaking on the edges, some adjustment on the edges, rather than fundamental change to relationships.
I will say normal stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Globalization is something that we cannot put on hold. It's a thing that we, of course, the border help to define specific rules for a country. But communication, manufacturing, the trade between countries, it cannot be stopped because a guy wants to do that. We need to work in a common sense. Of course, we need to have fair rules for everybody, but we need to keep the mind looking to do more trade between the countries. That's the only way to grow everybody. And of course, the NAFTA region is something that be hand by hand, because the real competitors are not Mexico or Canada for the United States. The real competition is Asia, and we need to work together to be more strong.
No, and it's good to hear that, because I think it's been a good, strong relationship. I think expectations are that it'll continue. And so thank you for sharing your insights, your opinions, your views of what's happening there. And our viewers, thank you too. Gentlemen, appreciate your time.